Lesson 5, Memory Techniques. So in this lesson it's about building confidence. If you memorize data, information, ideas quicker and deeper, it tends to build a lot of confidence in using those ideas, whether it's academically or at work or whatever you're trying to do in life. And with better memory techniques, you tend to secure information more accurately in the mind. You tend to use it and deploy it better. Everything gets quicker and easier. So there are three main methods we're going to consider to improve memory. One is called chunking, in other words, grouping information into natural forms, natural groups of shared common aspects or qualities. And then secondly, using pictures and stories. We humans are story machines. We love stories. They lend meaning. And most of us, not all of us, but the vast majority of us like pictures. We like stories and images or visualizations, if you like. We can then remember information better if we revise it. We see it again on regular cycles. And there are established cycles which we know can help you secure information better in your memory. Now, all these things get better through repetition. In other words, you'll learn the techniques better the more you repeat them, the more you use them, but also you'll retain data better the more you repeat your use of it. So repetition is one of the cornerstones of learning. Now, chunking is an incredibly easy, natural idea. So here we have a number 762778545. Not the easiest thing to remember, but a bit like a telephone number. If you split that into chunks of 3, 762 778 545, that becomes easier to remember. In other words, the mind is happier with three-digit numbers than it is with 1 9-digit number. That really helps the memory. Now, I'm not going to cover them now, but there are quite elaborate and sophisticated systems to convert numbers and letters into natural pictures or ideas that are easy to remember. Those systems are quite elaborate. I can provide detail in the resources to this lesson, but I'm not going to consider those within this course. If you want to learn them, then that's something you can add later. So when you're chunking information, you can use any associative method if you like. You're just associating one item in the group you have to memorize with others, and there's lots of different ways to do that. But what you do want to do, if you can, is use images, because we know that for most people, the visual memory, the ability to retain pictures and stories, something highly visualized, is better. You'll remember better in pictures than otherwise. So a quick example of chunking. So here's a shopping list. Say you want to memorize a shopping list. You don't have a piece of paper to write it down, so you're going to hold it in your memory. You're going to buy chicken, mixed salad, eggs, milk, oranges, vanilla ice cream, and a tin of tomato soup. Okay, now that's only 7 items. Just enough for most people to struggle with, but let's think about grouping them. So chicken and eggs, well, they go together. It's probably the same animal, assuming you're buying chicken eggs. So chicken and eggs is a natural group. Then I have grouped milk with vanilla ice cream. They're both a dairy base. Vanilla ice cream and milk seems like a natural group. And then I've gone for mixed salad with oranges with a tin of tomato soup. Now you might want to picture a tin with oranges and salad on top, some way of combining. It kind of makes a flag colour, doesn't it? If the mixed salad is green, the oranges are orange, the tomato soup is red, it's kind of a weird flag. Now there are lots of other ways to group these items, so you might want to go for a different way of chunking. But with those 3 groups, one group with 2 items, chicken and eggs, another group with 3 items, salad, oranges, tin of soup, and then you've got another 2-item group, vanilla ice cream and milk. That is fairly easy to remember. You may have a different way of chunking these items, that's fine, but with that example, I think I could retain that shopping list quite easily. So exercise 5.1, so use any technique you like to chunk, memorize this shopping list: cabbage, milk, eggs, apples, chocolate bar, bananas, macadamia nuts. Okay, so use any grouping or chunking method you want. Look at that list for, let's say, 30 seconds. Move on with the course, come back later, see if you can retain that list through applying chunking. Now let's move on to images and stories. So here's a fairly dry text. It's going to be about learning, and we'll have a quick way to apply images and stories, and here we are. Here's the text. An effective pedagogical approach, so this is about teaching and learning, is to consider first the audience, so the people learning, their goals, what do they want to do, what do they want to learn, what do they want to achieve, and then suitable learning outcomes. So when classes or lectures are designed, the courses are designed, you're thinking about learning outcomes. In other words, what will the students be able to achieve or do or understand at the end of that lecture or at the end of that course? Those are called learning outcomes. So appreciation of the complexity of X or the ability to solve Y, whatever. With that in mind, the problem of how to learn is framed in a tractable manner. So in other words, course design becomes more manageable. Many of the best teachers then spend more time creating engaging exercises for students targeted squarely at the learning outcomes, because remember, everything we teach now is dedicated to fulfilling those learning outcomes, achieving what we want to achieve, than they do in preparing standard content. So this is called flip teaching now, because we've flipped away from content, which is done very briefly or by the student, and towards practice of that content. Consistently over the years, more of the responsibility for understanding core taught content has fallen to the individual university students. This idea is used a lot at university, and their independent study time, while its refinement and practice has been increasingly taken up in contact time with a teacher. Learning has become more about effective practice and less about rote learning in class, in other words, less about memorizing content in class. Of course, the truth is that applying knowledge is for most students the easiest way to remember it. Now, so there's a fairly short paragraph about teaching, about pedagogy, if you like. So the image on the top left, this is an old-fashioned university or school. That's kind of the picture I had in my mind. We've then got a goal, so there's a goal within that context of learning, and it's about doing exercises. So there's a picture of a lady doing exercises. We then have a relatively small picture of, it's actually of a monk meditating in the mountains. So I'm thinking of independent learning being less important or demoted within the classroom. And then right at the bottom, we've got a person working as a stone mason, so they're producing a sculpture, and this for me is an image that strongly captures the idea of practice and perfecting a craft, so getting things right through action, through doing things, and that breeds a deeper kind of understanding. So with these 5 images, goal-directed learning, if you like, lots of emphasis on exercises and craft within this kind of learning school or university environment, I've tried to build a kind of sequence of images that captures that story. Now, you may well have other images in your mind, other ways to capture it, but that for me makes that fairly dry paragraph relatively easy to memorize. So you can use that technique again and again. A quick look now at revision cycles. So right after you study, you might want to spend 5 to 50 minutes to write keywords or images from that learning. So right after reading a book or attending a lecture or a training course. A day later, try to reproduce those keywords or images. A week later, again, reproduce keywords and images, add some important details if you want. A month later again, 6 months later again. Now this kind of cycle of 6, or in this case 5 revisions, so there's the original one and then there's 5 revisions, 6 cycles of learning, that will tend to secure knowledge in your mind. So this is perfect, for example, for professional exams or students studying at university. Using this 5 revision cycle process over these intervals will tend to embed that learning, help you memorize it with real clarity. So exercise 5.2, use images and stories to recall something you've had trouble remembering. So it might be a birthday or a password or somebody's address. It might be some process at work. So try and create images and stories around that troublesome thing that you can't hold in your memory, and see if you can't embed it with a far more visual and story or meaning-based approach. So, lesson 5 summary. Do you understand that there are 3 simple techniques to help your memory? So you can look at chunking, you can look at pictures and stories, and you can look at revision cycles, and all 3, of course, are helped by repetition. And do you appreciate that practice is vital? All these techniques are very easy, but to get incredibly good at them, to use them at their best, some practice is absolutely vital. So in the next lesson, we look at critical thinking.